Horror Noire, A History of Black Horror, is a 2011 book about Black Americans and the parts they've played in horror cinema. The horror streaming service Shudder turned it into a documentary in 2019. I haven't read the book, but the film adaptation left out a lot of very successful actors in their roles in horror history, especially in cosmic horror, so I made a video of the top 10 black actors in cosmic horror film. You can check it out at this link. But Shudder has now made Horror Noire into a 6-story anthology featuring black actors, directors, and screenwriters. And I am happy to say that there are several Lovecraftian elements in it. The first story is The Lake, which has elements of the Call of Cthulhu and the Shadow over Innsmouth. A woman moves for a new job and she is warned not to go in the lake of which her house is next to. There's even a line in it, "You hear the lake calling, don't you?" It has a Lovecraftian ending, which you can see coming, but there is no real conclusion or closure to the story, so that was disappointing. The second story is Brand of Evil. It is a standard Faustian bargain story. It was well done, but the author should have left out the literal white devil. The story worked better on its own merit without the cheesy racist trope come to life. The third story is Bride Before You by Stephanie Malia Morris. I was worried about this one because it is a period piece set somewhere between 1905 and 1921. It's about an affluent black family. Despite the imagery and nostalgia portrayed of the Roaring '20s, it was not a good time for most Americans. I come from a big family and my grandmother relayed to me how bad life really was back then. I was expecting it to be just another cliche Gone with the Wind, only with a horror twist. But to my surprise, it didn't have any of those worn-out tropes. This was my favorite story in the film. It is basically the Dunwich Horror. I won't spoil the twist ending, but it has been used in various other horror stories, with a probable origin of the trope being Cain and Abel, and of the changeling from fairy tales. But the time period was very well researched, and the dialogue is conversational and not expository. So if you're not familiar with the time period, a lot of the nuance will pass you by. It has well-constructed racial and social commentary, which is a great example of how such issues can be woven into a narrative without hitting the audience in the face with a sledgehammer like Jordan Peele does. He really should just go back to acting. But the story also has some root worker magic, and the off-camera monster effects aren't very good, but the ending reveal was alright. The rest of her writing is this solid. I hope to see many more conversions of Morris's work to film. The fourth story is Fugue State. It's about a modern, new agey type of cult with Tony Todd as the leader. You only get to see him at the end, which is a shame, but it fits with the story. It's very by the numbers, but it does have a good, bloody ending. The fifth story is Daddy. It's your typical protect your kid from the big bad world story, but it's the basic Jekyll and Hyde plot. Not sure if it's supposed to be a metaphor for addiction or just plain child abuse. The story's not very strong, but at least it's short. The last story is Sundown by Letzen. The title is a play on words, mixing a vampire story with the very in vogue topic of sundown towns from America's racist past. But it's a smartly written story, horror comedy, and could have easily been a full-length film because the story had a great pacing, but the ending was rushed because of time constraints. And Lavell Crawford is a seasoned actor and comedian, and he steals the spotlight as the only black vampire in a town full of white vampires. I'd love to see a whole film with this character's adventures across the South. Overall, it was an enjoyable anthology, and I'm glad that it was a horror movie that contained well-done social commentary as opposed to being a piece of woke trash trying to use the horror genre for its own political agenda. So be sure to subscribe for more occult horror and Lovecraft madness. Until next time, Cthulhu Fatagan.